Hello, guys. Eric and Kim here. We're going to review Turning Red, the new Pixar movie. It will be no spoilers as far as like anything near the end of this film, but we'll talk about the basic plot and stuff that's in the trailers and has been talked about in interviews, etc., etc. Your basic setup here, which I think the trailer describes well, is this movie's about a girl named May. She's a 13-year-old living in Canada, in Toronto specifically in 2002. We'll talk about that hyper-specific time and place, I think, in a bit. And one day she wakes up and she's turned into a red panda. As it turns out, this is a thing in her family with the women. I don't want to say curse, but it's a thing. a thing that happens. And now she's going to have to kind of deal with it and see how she can kind of suppress this. Because the panda, it's just hard to get around in your red panda, and B, there's some more somewhat darker tendencies with the panda, and we see what happens and the relationship with her mom, who obviously knows this history well since she went through it, and how it all comes together with her quest to see her beloved favorite boy band ever in concert. What are they called? Four Town. Yes. So that is Turning Red's plot. Kim, what did you think of Turning Red?
Oh, well, it's another lovely, charming Pixar movie, ultimately. And another personal story, like Onward. I don't know for sure that it was the creator, Domi Shi. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that properly. I'm probably butchering her name. References to her childhood, I imagine, but you'd have to have a heart of stone not to be moved by this. The animation was astonishing, and it captures really well, I think, what it's like to be a girl on the cusp of womanhood, not just, a Chinese Canadian girl, although that is specific too and really interesting to see. And it's, the mess of it encapsulates the mess of emotions you feel growing up, whether you're a boy or a girl, I think. But particularly it hones in on kind of the sexual awakening that girls have, and the search for identity, and it's a really strong message. It's loud and clear in this film, which is both good and maybe a little bit negative from my perspective, because it's quite heavy-handed, but overall a lovely movie.
Yeah, I really loved this one. Look, there are a pretty small amount of Pixar misses, but this one was particularly, sort of high for me as far as like, hitting a home run. It's not, it's funny because it's on one hand, it's a fairly low stakes movie because you could say it's all about a 13-year-old girl trying to get to a concert of a band she loves, adding in that she turns into a giant red panda, but it so connects you to this character. And it's like, I have never been Canadian, Chinese, or a girl, but there are definitely things that are relatable to anyone who's gone through adolescence in this movie. And you completely feel sort of rooted into her world. And I love how specific it is. They didn't have to, because Domi Shi is from Canada, and was around 13 in the year 2002, maybe like a couple years different. But it just felt right. Like, it's like they didn't have to say it was Toronto, but I love that they did, although I kind of resent them for saying that 2002, reminding us that was 20 years ago and that it's a period piece. I don't like that part.
We talked about that a little bit, didn't we? It's 20 years ago. Geez.
It's really strange, right? Because at the beginning of the movie, you're like, 2002, that's like, what's the deal? And then you're like, yeah, it's different enough. Like, yeah, I interviewed Domi Shi and the producer, and we talked about how it's like, even with the internet, it existed, but the fact that there was no social media and there was no smartphones, which are right around the corner, but it still makes a difference. Like when you're portraying kids, that they don't have access to those things that are coming soon. And maybe that's not a great thing, but let's talk about the characters here, though. I really loved May. Most of the cast here, there's a couple of stars in this cast. Sandra Oh is the voice of her mother, Ming, and then I love that James Hong is in this movie, who you will know from a million things, who's in his 90s and still going strong. Most of them aren't that well known, though, including Rosalie Chang, who voices May. But I just thought, like, she is there's a little bit of her that's supposed to be kind of a little much and maybe slightly annoying, but in an endearing way. And I thought they really sort of captured that. And I loved her circle of friends. What did you think May and her gang?
I agree. Yeah, they were all perfect for me, and I like it when they use lesser known actors for the voices and things like this, because it's less distracting for me. Although Sandra Oh was wonderful, but she's still not, kind of a Chris Pratt kind of level, who was obviously voiced a character in Onward, and opposite Tom Holland. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and often, they are good with voices, some of these people who are cast, and they're lesser known, and it makes a lot of difference. The friends all were wonderful, I think, this trio of girls.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the animation of those girls was, we're very used to brilliant animation now, particularly from Pixar. But there were moments, especially in the animation of these girls and their faces, their expressions, where I went, wow, it feels like another step forward in a way for me.
I totally agree. Love them all. I think my favorite might be Abby. She's the shortest girl there with the headband and the purple overalls, and she's kind of always angry. Yeah.
Angry eyebrows.
Yes. She's great. She's ready to step up and fight. Love her. And yeah, the animation is so great. Many years ago, Pixar figured out wisely that they shouldn't try to be hyper realistic with humans, or you get into the creepy uncanny valley thing. And this is a perfect way to do that, as far as like, they feel so real without trying to look like people walking out on the street. And then there's little moments like there's some moments where they almost have like anime eyes for a second and stuff that really fits into their world and what they are into. And I thought that works so well as far as like really like just putting you into this group of kids,
Yeah, and though those kind of expressions with the anime eyes are really exaggerated and cartoonish, it really captures the emotion really well, which is cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then, I also want to mention, you mentioned something about how it's like, this is a movie, again, in a light, fun Pixar way, but it does deal with like burgeoning sexuality and adolescence, and honestly tiptoes into areas that I still was sort of surprised to see in a Pixar Disney movie. Like, we can talk about it, it's been talked about in interviews. I see this movie talks about girls getting their period, which again, I wouldn't think I would have brought up 2 weeks ago, because it's Disney Pixar. It's done in a super funny way. It's a natural part of life, guys. And I thought that was great. Like, I thought, and like, even the fact that they describe a boy as sexy in this movie, these are tiny little things, but I think you just don't, you kind of feel like sometimes Disney and Pixar will shy away from that. And here it's like, no, they act like real 13-year-old girls. And I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's really cool. And the film itself is called Turning Red, which is an obvious reference to periods, but also it references, the emotions that, like, anger. She feels anger, and that's what it refers to, as well as literally referencing the red panda. And also, I thought, what else does red mean? It means stop, and putting a stop to what went before, and embracing the new and the future. So, which is what she ends up doing through the film.
And yeah, a big core part of this movie is, her relationship with her parents, specifically her mom, and kind of having to feel like being the perfect kid and doing all these things the way that her mom wants her to, and their conflict there. It's handled really well. It also, there is some moments in this movie that play like a straight up funny horror movie, which is to say, there are moments of a parent causing the worst cringe, the worst embarrassment. I watched this movie by myself, and then I showed it to my wife, and she's like, why didn't you warn me that there'd be moments where her mom would embarrass her that much? But they are highly effective, and those are incredibly relatable. They might be more relatable for some, but just the idea of like, why is my mom doing this when you're a teenager, or especially when you're 13? I think we can all relate to that, right?
That's it. I think we've all, whatever the scenario, I think we've all been embarrassed by our parents at some point.
Yeah, 100%. And this movie, because it's, for comedic about there's a part where her mom this is one of the best worst parts with what happens in that scene, and ties back into something we were just talking about. Yeah, there are moments in this movie where just like you're like screaming like, no, don't, like May is what her mom is doing in these scenes.
Look at lovely May there.
I know, poor May. And her dad's so sweet. I'm looking at that, I'm like just watching the footage. Yeah. I really like these characters. I mean, I think that's kind of like, obviously that's a key component, but it's like you really like spending time with them. Let's talk a little bit about, you're gonna say, Kim?
Well, it just occurred to me, I watched this I've been watching Pam and Tommy, which over here is also on a Disney Plus. Right. And there were parallels for me. I never thought I'd ever say that about something like Pam and Tommy and a Pixar film. But it was all the more powerful because of that, where that series is about, in large part, about misogyny and the experience of being a woman. And it really did amplify my feelings for May as I watched this film.
It is, again, so fascinating. We've joked about this before, but the alternate universe for us in America, that Pam and Tommy is on Disney Plus alongside Turning Red. So interesting. Let's talk about the music. It has a great score by Ludwig Göransson, who everyone knows from Black Panther and The Mandalorian. But then, what's getting a lot of attention, understandably so, is the songs of Four Town, because Billie Eilish and her brother / co-songwriter Phineas wrote these songs. Not their usual forte as far as the kind of songs Billie Eilish is known for, but I thought they were really fun, and I was humming one song in particular, got stuck in my head for quite a while as an earworm. What'd you think of Four Town and their music here, Kim?
Oh, yeah, I mean, they're so catchy, the songs. Also I was humming them. And I've got no doubt that this isn't the last we'll hear of Four Town in the Pixar universe. Maybe there'll be a spin-off movie. I'd like to see that, because I think they need exploring more, actually.
I think that's quite possible. They love to do they'll do the shorts, and they'll sometimes take them like off on a supporting character, like the one they did after Luca. And I think Four Town is a definite way to go. Although I would also support that short about Abby, just venting her way through the world. Go for it. Well, let's sort of end here talking a little bit just about the fact that this will be a Disney Plus exclusive, only because this has been a weird thing. We talked about on SJU when it was announced. The strange fact that there seems to be a weird segregation happening here, where all the Pixar movies since the pandemic happened, and obviously everyone understands the pandemic led to a lot of big decisions having to be made. But the strange thing that Soul and Luca and this have gone straight to Disney Plus in countries that have Disney Plus. If you're living in a country without it, it will be opening theatrically. While the Walt Disney Animation Studios movies, Raya and Encanto, did get theatrical releases, I was kind of bummed watching this won't be in theaters, because I do think this would be a good communal, even those cringe moments, I could feel an audience, what it would be like to watch that with people yelling together, "Mom, don't." What do you think about how this movie's getting released?
That's a good point. Imagine, a 9-year-old girl watching it with her mum, and oh God.
They're missing out on a great moment, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but yeah, you're absolutely right. And for families to go to the cinema to watch films like this is, I think it's important. That whole movie experience for families, and to get the kids out of the house, do something together. But having said that, the film works really well just on the small screen. It didn't, having not seen it on the big screen,
right,
it's difficult to say, but it didn't lose any of the detail or the impact. I really was struck by the animation on the small screen.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like the first time I watched this movie was on my laptop in a hotel room, and it played great, even as I thought, I'd love to see this in a theater as well. But yeah, the movie, I guess it's a compliment to the movie to say, I wish I could see it in a theater too. But either way, I think we're both recommending this film. Kim, what would you rate this film out of 5 stars?
Well, there's a couple of things that make me mark it down from other Pixar movies, in that I would have liked maybe a bit more personality and characterization to some of the peripheral characters. I get that Four Town are a generic boy band, but maybe I would have liked to have seen a bit more personality there.
They're saving it for the short, Kim.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. But when there's so much kind of depth and detail in some of the other Pixar films that, I would give 5 stars to, I felt that there was a little bit lacking here. So I'm going to give it 3.5, which sounds maybe sounds a little bit unfair, but it's not quite deserving of a 4 to me.
Mm-hmm. I'm going big on this one. Well, not going 5 stars at like sort of the top, going 4.5, which the second viewing solidified for me only, and it's pure emotionally driven, I guess, because there are Pixar movies that have been even better and certainly have been even sort of like more like introspective on like a grander scale. But I really appreciated what this was doing on a personal level. And I really love Luca too, but this one even more. I just thought, wow, this really hits home. And I love, again, like it's like the fact that it's like starts out, it's like Toronto 2002 and this 13-year-old girl. And then you just completely like, yeah, this is a fully realized world of this Toronto girl in 2002. Loved it and loved the humor. So like there's a couple quibbles I have with a couple things near the end, but for the most part, it hit home for me. And I'd welcome to see any of these characters again in whatever iterations, and of course to see that red panda walking around at a Disney park at some point.
Oh yes, in all its fluffy glory.
In all its fluffy glory. I said glorious. In glory, which
That's
you see in the movie, other characters really want to hug the panda, and who could blame them? Guys, that is our thoughts on Turning Red, which will mostly be on Disney Plus, depending on what part of the world you live in. Thanks for listening to this review. We'll have plenty more here at Fandom.